guys, welcome back to the HandyTech channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I made a custom sign for my girlfriend's birthday party. I started off with a piece of MDF, but you could also use plywood. Then I sharpened up my pencil so I could start drawing out the numbers on that piece of wood. So I used a tape measure and just marked out the center of that piece of wood, and that's going to help me sort of shuffle around the sizing of the number. And then I started to sketch in the number 3. I wasn't too happy with how this first one turned out, so I actually changed my design. The new design was a little more square and a bit sleeker. You can see I've also swapped to a permanent marker once I was a little more confident that my drawing was going to be accurate. I've seen some big print type programs out there where you can print out large letters, but I don't have access to that at the time, so I'm just sketching it in by hand. To cut out the numbers, I used a jigsaw. If I had a bandsaw, that would be pretty easy, but then the piece of wood is quite large, so whatever works for you. Here's a little tip. If you've got some sort of inside corner or an area that's hard to get to, make a large enough hole with a drill, and then your blade of the jigsaw will be able to go into that hole and you can start cutting from that point. So now we've got the 3 cut out. I want to use that as a template to get the sizing right for the 0. Obviously if they're different sizes they're going to look strange, so yeah, I put that on top of the piece of MDF and I used it to trace out and get the sizing right. And because we'd already established a curve at the bottom of the 3, I'm using that same curve for the top and bottom of the 0. I decided the thickness of those numbers would be 120 mil, so you can see me going around and marking the inside circle. So once we had finished up drawing, we got the jigsaw out again and cut that out. And that left us with 2 numbers looking like this. So now we're going to make some sort of border on these numbers, and I use this stuff called lawn edge, and it's sort of like a rippled piece of plastic. I used a couple of offcuts just to prop the number up a little bit, and then I could use a 2mm drill and pre-drill some holes through the plastic and into that MDF number, and then I can drive a short chipboard screw through the plastic into the wood, and that holds the plastic onto it. And then it was just rinse and repeat. Some of the trickier areas I used some little clamps just to hold the plastic together because it's quite springy. I also found that my little office stapler was strong enough to punch a staple through the plastic, and that holds it together nice and tight as well. A pair of scissors is easily able to cut through that plastic as well, and then we can staple those corners. After all that, this is how they turned out. So now we're going to paint the signs. We will be installing some lights inside these signs, so we want a nice bright surface at the back. I used a white spray paint to get the inside, and I'll be using a silver spray paint for the outside. Just a tip, don't be like the HandyTech. Make sure you put a respirator on when you're spraying with spray paint. Then I tried to mask off the inside of the sign so I could paint the inside of that plastic silver, and I did a shit job of the masking, so all the overspray ended up painting my white paint silver. So in the end I came back with some prep paint that I had in the garage and painted white with a brush. Now we're ready to install the lights. I'm going to be using fairy lights because they're pretty cheap and they're easy to find. So I used a little ruler to measure the spacing between each of the lights, and then I used a marker just to go and mark out little points that I wanted to drill holes, just so that the lights could poke through from the other side. You'll see what I mean in a second. Then I measured the diameter of the lights, and I found that a 5.5mm drill bit was the closest match, and so I took a drill and drilled holes in all those spots that I'd marked. Then I could use a vacuum cleaner to clean it up. If you followed so far, you should end up with something looking like this. Now initially I tried to squeeze a bit of that white silicone into the hole just as I was pushing the LED in, but it became so messy. So the best way is actually to push all the LEDs in the hole first and then come back with the silicone after. I use white silicone because I thought maybe on the off chance that some of the silicone came out the hole on the other side, at least it'd be the same color as the paint, but you could get away with using hot glue or even super glue. And here's just a close-up on how much silicone I used. Not much, just enough to hold the wire in place. Now, had I been a little smarter, I probably would have counted up my holes to suit the number of lights that are on the fairy lights. But in the end, I actually did too many holes, so I had to go out and buy another set of fairy lights. So the number 3 has more than one set of lights on it. My plan is to hang these lights, so I fixed 2 little blocks onto each number, and that's somewhere I can fix the chain onto. Make sure you measure out how low you want to hang the lights from wherever you're going to hang them, and then you can make the chain suit that exact length. So this is where I want to hang my signs, right above the DIY pool gate that I did. If you want to see that video, I'll put a link in the description below. Then we can finally hang up the signs, and the extra fairy lights I just used as decoration. And a first look of the lights running. Not very impressive yet, but wait to see them at night. But first, let's set up the rest of the party. And here's how they look in the dark. Really nice and bright, they were quite dazzling, and they actually became the center point for a lot of photos, which could happen at your party too if you make these. So hopefully this little DIY tutorial has been helpful and you guys are going to make some cool numbers like these as well. Cheers for watching, I'll see you again with another video really soon. Make sure you give this a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button.